Okay, the conversation has been going on behind the scenes between Senator Kasanga and SG Sifuna here, and we are still with the Governor John Lonyangapuo, the Governor of West Pokot, and now I want us to focus on the campaign trail and listening to what the leaders have been saying on the ground. Of course, at different locations. Raila Odinga has been touring, was in Turkana, went to Eldoret, went to Isiolo and Meru, and now he will be in Tharaka Nithi today. I don't know whether I've missed one of the locations there. But as we do this, we'll shortly be listening to what one Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto have been saying on the ground. But I'm also wondering, Senator Kasanga, you haven't heard from your party leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, and this is coming at a time, just a few days, you lost a by-election, Masumba, and actually the person who won is an independent candidate, followed by a UDA candidate, and a Wiper candidate was number 3. What went on?
Yeah, Masumba was a good lesson for us in Wiper. In fact, it is very interesting to see how that election of Masumba, an MCA position, had a lot of interest from national quarters. It was very interesting. We've never seen anything like that. We've never seen that the amount of money that was spent on Masumba. We had, Wiper was infiltrated from UDA, from the governor, Mutua's camp. They had all infiltrated. We had malls everywhere. People were paid, and it was very difficult even to hold a strategy. And even our nomination was infiltrated, and that was actually where, for us as Wiper, the train derailed. And we now know. In fact, we were saying when we were speaking amongst ourselves, we said we are grateful that this actually has happened ahead of 2022, because then we are able to weed out. We are able to weed out all those people, and we know them. And if they're listening to me right now, I want to tell them we know them, now we know them. And we are glad that they showed their face, because now we are going to clean up our house. Because we assure Kenyans, we assure anyone who's coming for a Wiper ticket, there will be a free and very fair nomination that will take place, not like what happened in Masumba. And it is because of that, actually, that the candidate who was presented to Wiper, of course, we were, relying on our operatives on the ground, that we ended up with the losing candidate in that sense. But for us, we don't take it as a big knock. Actually, we take it as a good learning lesson for us to prepare for the next.
But does this mean that, because, I mean, the winning candidate is an independent, and if you look at the difference between, I think he got 2,900.
Yes, he got
the
2,900.
UDA candidate got 2,200.
Yes.
Wiper 1,600.
Yes,
I mean, what does this mean about the influence of Wiper versus
No, it has actually,
like UDA?
it has nothing to do with the influence. Like I said, the issue was actually at the nomination, because that independent candidate actually should have been the one who got the Wiper ticket from the word go. But because of all the interest that we saw and the infiltration and the money then that was finally poured into this election, then we saw the loss that happened at Wiper.
How didn't he end up being the candidate for Wiper?
Like I said, it's a nomination issue. It happened down there on the ground.
Yeah,
and
so
we had operatives who had been infiltrated. So somehow they cooked up the nomination, which was very unfortunate. And for those of us who are overseeing that nomination process, is a question now we asked, and we're unraveling that issue that happened right there at the nomination. And we are now, the details are coming out now. We're beginning to become aware of really what happened at that point. And like I said, we are actually glad it happened now, that we can now prepare ourselves as we go into the next election. And don't forget, the general area, Kibwezi West, has never really been a stronghold of Wiper. Generally. But this was a good opportunity for us. If we had done the nomination right, we would have had the right candidate. But also it goes to tell us, even as political leaders, as political parties, as we move to the next election, we have to really, give a clear and clean and, honest nominations have to be done. And the will of the people must be done. So gone are the days
Senator,
now.
I'm just wondering, if Wiper, a party that its strongest base is in Ukambani, if you're talking about Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui, if they are losing such a seat, that is, the jurisdiction is pretty small, then what does that say about the bigger region
Some
and
have
the country?
had that narrative. I've
No,
had that
it's a
narrative
question.
that
just respond.
I'll respond to it, because I've had the narrative that if Wiper has lost an MCA seat, then suddenly Wiper has no, has no strength in Ukambani. That's a fallacy. You know, many political parties lose in their backyards. It has happened many times before. Even other seats, even they lose even MP seats in their own backyard. Is it not true, Sifuna? These things happen. Does that mean then the party suddenly has no strength in the region? That's a nonsense. You know, we have the MP, like I said, we have an independent MP in Makueni, Honorable Masumba. Does that mean Wiper then is not strong in Makueni? We even have in Kitui, we have Rachel, who is Jubilee. Honorable Rachel is Jubilee. Does that mean Wiper then has no strength? That is just a fallacy. And you see, the issue is that the minute we lost Ngu Masumba, we have people who came out, you know, to attack Wiper, attack our party leader, as if that is the only thing that can determine how strong His Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is in Ukambani. That is a complete fallacy.
We're not seeing him as much as we're seeing other aspirants.
Oh, but there's time. You know, just because ODM is now upbeat and running and the deputy president has been running does not mean that we are just going to election next year. We still have time and we have to arrange ourselves. Okay. Like I was telling you behind the scenes, Wiper, we have to fundraise. As you know, we don't have money in Wiper. We don't steal. We are honest leaders. I've said it here before. We present ourselves the way we are. We tell you things as the way they are. We don't have money. We have to fundraise. We are still waiting for Sifuna there to release money. And as you know, if we had not made the noise that we made, we would not even have started receiving that money, which is due to us. If we had been receiving that money ahead of time, even our Wiper would be having budget for civic education the way ODM has. So these things that have been unfair and they're not giving us a level playing field like the rest of the political parties. But I always say, we have time. It's not like we don't have time. We are still organizing ourselves. We are fundraising. And our party leader, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, has been busy in his own ways, in his own quarters, speaking about, you know, the agenda for the party and, you know, raising up our manifesto, which we are now completely putting it together. And you're going to see it. We're going to unveil it in no time now. But there's time. You know, just because the others are running ahead does not mean all of us have to be running ahead. Even the last can be fast. Okay. It all depends on what we have to offer Kenyans in the end.
I'm looking at the amount of money that you had received from, because you said Sifuna was to give you money, 70.4 million is what was to come to you based on that agreement between, I mean, amongst the NASA partners. I mean, SG Sifuna, why are you keeping their money?
I'm not keeping money. I think Senator Kasanga needs to speak to her party leader, because I think it was almost 3 months ago, we sent Wiper their money. So I think she should speak
No, he should be sincere and say how much they sent.
She should speak to her party leader. And
how by the way,
how much did you send, Sifuna? Why did you say?
The only monies we are holding are monies for Ford Kenya. And it is because we do not want to finance a civil war. The matter, it's the truth. We don't want to give a faction money so that they go and decimate the other. We have said that we will respect the court process in respect of the Ford Kenya leadership wrangle, and that's the only money that we are keeping. But I want to remind...
And Ford Kenya is in agreement with you on that?
But it's our money.
No, I mean,
it's our money. This money is ex gratia, Sam. I don't want to go into this.
There's nothing like ex gratia.
Just
discussion because
we need to bring Governor Lonyangapuo here into this. But I mean, if you decided that this money is going to go to all the coalition partners under NASA, now defunct, just release it. Are you in agreement with Ford Kenya that you should not relate?
I think my counterpart in Ford Kenya is in agreement, Honorable Eseli Simiyu, that in fact we should hold this money until the leadership wrangle is resolved, and it is there in writing, Sam. So we really have no more to say about that, and I don't want to get into all this because we have moved on as ODM, as you can see.
All right, of course, we
are doing our own thing.
There's a pending question there from Senator Kasanga. I'll give you an opportunity to respond because he's asking you to be honest. She's asking you to be honest how much you've released. But Governor Lonyangapuo needs to leave. But before he does, Governor, you've been watching the campaign trail. Raila Odinga says 6,000 for every unemployed household. William Ruto is saying bottom-up economic approach, speaking to the hustlers, quote-unquote. Other leaders, including Kalonzo Musyoka, have spoken about dealing with corruption. Have we gotten the message that Kenyans are looking for through political contest and elections?
Thank you. These are the initial stages for promises and and ambitions, plans that may appear in the manifestos of various candidates. So they are still testing the waters, going around to tell people what they are capable to do. So to me, we have not seen the final yet. They are still going around, and at the opportune time when coalition agreements are going to be done between various parties, like now my party, Kenya Union Party, will also join with other like-minded in future. Those is the time now that candidate of that coalition will craft a final manifesto that will be appealing to Kenyans. So what I'm seeing the former Prime Minister saying, and what I'm hearing the Deputy President also saying, it is not the final yet. They will craft something similar to and more enriched than what they are talking about today, because these other manifestos, like from WIPA, from Kenya Union Party, from Ford, and everywhere else, at that time you will be hearing that and seeing. And very enriched position papers are going to come out for you Kenyans to decide, and you will see. So let's not, first of all, vilify what we are hearing. Those are just rough drafts that are still coming out.
But do you see any possibility? You've been a principal secretary in government. Do you see the practicality of these promises? For instance, if you talk about the 6,000 per unemployed household, that would be 6 times 12 should be 72,000 per family. Is it practical?
There is nothing impossible under the sun. Today, last week I joined the Red Cross in giving out money, cash transfer to families that are very poor. 4,000 and something every household per month. And we were just sent through M-Pesa quickly to all the identified families, and it worked. So, and then sometimes we also give out relief food. From 1963, West Pokot has been getting relief government food subsidies everywhere, most of the counties that have been marginalized. So it is not unique. We are also giving out bursaries. Bursaries that are dedicated and family given. West Pokot is the leading now. We give almost to the tune of over 700 million every year, because we want everybody to go to school so that we can up our game and be at the same bar with Kenyans in the years to come. Over 10, 20 years, we will not be speaking the same. This very many percentage of differentiation in terms of poverty will disappear. So allow our candidates, allow them to bring what they have. Don't begin to criticize and analyze. Let's internalize and also look at the past. In the past, what has happened? What have we been giving? Do you remember also that time, during the Grand Coalition government, there was a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta was the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister in charge of Finance at that time. There was decision that a deliberate decision was done to inject funds for small and micro enterprises to come up. So it's very possible with any idea that may come around. And these manifestos sometimes appeal. The reason why this cash transfer thing people may be wanting to hear is because of the poverty level we are in now. This pandemic has terrorized and depressed everybody. So let's see, and then begin. And I also think the economists and finance guys behind these manifestos are also keenly working. I don't think they are just throwing these things just because people want to hear about it. Even the model the Deputy President is talking about, I don't think they just move it around. Let's begin to analyze at a later stage. We now put it on the table. Which one is going to be viable and meaningful?
But Governor, I mean, after being a PS, being a senator, now governor for actually more than 4 years, you would know what can work, what cannot, especially for the residents of West Pokot County. If you are to uplift their livelihoods or their economies down there, what do you think would be the best solution that is achievable through a national manifesto, or should it actually be devolved to county manifesto by even the presidential candidates?
Like I mentioned to you, if you want to hear what I'm doing in West Pokot here, in West Pokot, we have examined and detailed areas in our county. What is the economic activity taking place in a county? In West Pokot here, many people keep animals. So what we have decided is to make sure that we up and improve the grade and the type of animal we keep around to get milk and meat and so on. So we are buying so many animals that are improving these ones. We are pumping money into education in order to lift them up. We are pumping money into agriculture. So what I'm trying to tell you is that which manifesto will work, I'm not teaching the candidates. And that is why it is good to listen to what they are going to offer as they move around now talking about still testing the waters. Sifuna is there. I don't think Sifuna has a manifesto yet for his candidate. Because I know maybe the former Prime Minister will stand. Nobody has not declared yet. But I want to ask Kenyans not to put too much attention to this yet. Let them speak everything. And the final document will come and we debate about it. And we'll see. I mean, but to me, these are the initial promises that the people are making about that is going to determine what they are going to offer and put on the table. And this cash transfer normally it's like it's an injection. It's like you are injecting money into a business. You don't sustain it, but you inject it maybe a year or 2 or 3, hoping things will have stabilized. And that's what we are doing here. We give subsidies to farmers, hoping that in the next 2 or 3 years, they will have stabilized and gone back to their usual life whenever calamity arises. West Pokot was hit here the other day by disasters of landslides and flood. We had to come in with a component of support, which is no longer sustainable. We had now come out of it. And I'm happy Kenyans came to stand with us during that time.
All right, Prof, I hear you. One might accuse you of being against public participation, but we hear your voice on that, and I think we'll have to let you go. I understand that you have some engagement to rush to. Thank you for your time. And as we continue this conversation, I want us now to listen to Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto on what they've been saying on the campaign trail. Then we can get back here in studio. Listen.
Alafu tunajenga kiwanda hapa ya kutengeneza ngozi kutoka kwa ngozi ya ng'ombe na mbuzi na kadhalika, tunatengeneza leather ili tunaweza kutengeneza viatu hapa made in Kenya, made in Isiolo. Tujenge mabwawa na vidimbwi ya kuvuna hiyo maji mingi bana yaenda hasara huku.
Tulikuwa tunapigania kupata matunda ya uhuru, na sisi tukifugaji tulisema ni sharti tupate mali hapa mashinani. Ule mtu alisema ugatuzi devolution ni Raila Amolo Odinga.
Shida za Isiolo na za Lamu zimefanana. Muna constituency mbili, tuna constituency mbili. Kwa hivyo hiyo lapset kufanya kazi ni kushikana, na hapa ndio kuna maendeleo. Baba enda wapi? Musipoteze kura yenu nyinyi wana Isiolo.
Mimi niko hapa na nawaletea ujumbe kutoka kwa mlima. Mimi ni Mkikuyu kutoka kule na Rumoro. Na kule sisi tumechukua rada. Sisi tumeona mbele. Sisi tumeona atakaye kuwa rais ni baba.
Tunasimama na yeye kwa sababu tunajua ataweka wamama mbele katika siasa, katika kazi na katika kiuchumi. Na wakati huu the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya ni mmoja tu, Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga.
Hata bwana Kitendawili nasikia amesema anataka kulete handouts. Mimi namwambia bwana Kitendawili kuja katika mjadala wa mahasla. Karibu katika mjadala wa uchumi. lakini hawa mahasla hawahitaji handout. Hawa vijana wanataka kazi. Hawa wadosi wote sasa tumewaweka adabu. Wamewacha mambo ya kitendawili, wamewacha mambo ya rege, wamewacha mambo ya vyeo. Sasa wanaongea mambo ya mahasla na mambo ya uchumi. Lakini pale bado tutawaweka darasani tuwasomeshe. Hatuhitaji handouts, tunahitaji empowerment.
Siasa yako imebadilisha mjadala katika Kenya hii. Tumekuwa muda mrefu sisi tukipigiwa siasa, tunapigiwa siasa za kuwa tupigieni kura, tialala, tibim. Lakini sasa hivi ni siasa ya kumbeba aliye chini. Na Waswahili wasema mkono mtupu haulambwi.
Tumesema tunampenda naibu wa rais, na tumesema fomu inayokuja ni ya mahasla. Sasa wewe hasla, nataka kukuambia lazima ujitayarishe, na kujitayarisha ni lazima uwe na kura yako mfukoni.
All right, of course, there's so much more that has gone on in different towns in this country. And SG Sifuna, I would want us to, of course, there are some few issues that were raised by Governor Lonyangapuo. You may want to respond to some of them. But as you do that, we've been asking this question about the 6,000 proposal. Have you processed these to the extent to know how many households you're talking about that would be dependent of this or be beneficiaries of this, and for how long?
Okay. First, you know, I have a lot of respect for the governor. He's a good friend. But I want to correct him. A manifesto is not the physical document. A manifesto is not the physical document that you then require to read. It is the thinking, it is the ideas that are being put forward by the various candidates. And in that respect, I believe that it is clear what our manifesto is going to be about, the written document itself. We have tried to put forward some of our thoughts, and one of them is the one that you're asking me about. But allow me to just touch on some of them. We have spoken about ensuring that you have at least one industry that is identifiable with every specific county. So whether it is leather processing in Laikipia or Isiolo, whether it is a banana factory in Kisii, all these ideas we've put forward. You've had Honorable Raila talking about his plan for healthcare. He wants every county to at least have a level 6 hospital. And then we come to the question of rural infrastructure. We have put forward our thoughts on how we believe that if we upgrade and uplift the rural infrastructure, in fact, we can cut the question of urbanization and also to improve the lives of the people to, people in the rural areas. We have spoken about market for crops. Just yesterday when we were in Meru, we were talking about finding new markets for the product that is Miraa, for instance. And you had even the practical steps in the interim that were being proposed by Governor Joe, for instance, saying cess will no longer be levied on Miraa going to Mombasa. And I want to believe that we will have a conversation with all our governors to extend the same, to Miraa that is being taken to their own counties. Now, on this question of, first of all, this entire discussion, you know, ODM is a social democratic party. That is what we have always been. Social democracy takes certain economic interventions and social interventions to put a human face to capitalism. This is who we are. We are the original small people party. I mean, so when these characters, I see them saying, oh, ODM have now come to this conversation. This is a conversation that we began. Even this question of cash transfers that you are asking, there is already a cash transfer program in the Jubilee government, and I'm surprised the deputy president does not know that there is in fact a cash transfer program. We have the statistics, Sam, because for us, the difference between us and them is, you know, they will come here and throw out big terms like bottoms up. Then when you ask them specifically, what are these things about? You have heard them here on this show, and they couldn't tell you what they were talking about. When we provide specifics, we demonstrate that we have thought about what we're talking about. So there are 2 million households that are targeted in the 6,000 shilling cash transfer program. And this data is available at the Kenya National Bureau of Standards. When the government does its census, do you know, Sam, they record even how many chicken you have. It is very possible for me, given the UN standard of what poverty is, and the statistics that are available for me, what sort of house do you live in? We know, we can tell with certainty how many houses have a tin roof in this country. We can tell with certainty how many houses have a concrete floor. So this is not rocket science. The data is there and the government is already doing this. We estimate that this will cost maybe another 100 billion shillings in addition to the already existing cash transfer program. So identification of the households that are to benefit is something very simple. The statistics and numbers are there. Where the money is going to come from is the other question that we hear. Now, we have proposed that we rationalize ministries. We cut spending in the ministries by about 25%. This is spending that we believe is unnecessary spending. If you look at the budget, the government budget, the money that is spent on entertainment alone in government, entertainment, travel, tea and mandazi in offices, these are things that when we talk about rationalization of government spending, this is where the money is going to come from. First of all, we plug wastage. And then number two, and the most critical one, is to stop theft. If your president is telling you that you lose 2 billion shillings every single day, that is the equivalent of the county allocation for Lamu every financial year. It is ridiculous, Sam, that in just...
But SG Sifuna, you know, when it comes to budgeting, there's no vote called corruption. It's money that has been meant for programs. So I'm just wondering, how will you think...
That is where you go wrong. Corruption in this country is budgeted.
Listen to the question. Listen to the question, because the documents that we look at, even from the National Treasury, out of the budget of 3.6 trillion shillings, you can actually track that money to the respective state departments and programs. Just hold on. I'm talking about the papers. So now, where will you move this money, even this 2 billion you're saying that is getting lost, how will you thin it out from programs and now move it towards...
Now, I want to open your eyes to the reality, Sam. Corruption in this country is budgeted. They budget for where the money is going to be stolen from. They wait for it at the other end. You have reports of the Auditor General, for instance. You say you can track money to the projects. When we borrow 2 billion shillings of the Eurobond, the Auditor General himself, who I believe has better standing than you to tell us if the money has been spent, has told us he cannot trace which programs specifically the money was applied to. So don't discount the facts that I'm telling you, that in fact, corruption in this country is budgeted for. They know where the money is put so that it appears like it's going to a specific program. Then wanaenda kungojea huko mbele. So if we are able to cut that money, and the president himself, surely, Sam, you want to dispute the president. He's the one who knows. He's telling you 2 billion of your money is lost every day. So if we can be able to plug, the theft, if this money has to be eaten, why can't it be eaten by ordinary folks down there?
Of course, I've done my calculation. It comes to about 144 billion shillings that would require to sustain these 2 million households.
Yes.
And Senator Kasanga, as you reflect on this, what are the possibilities of achieving such? And is it what the Deputy President and team are talking about, handouts? Is it sustainable if you're to spur economic growth in the country?
Let me first start by saying that we as WIPA, of course, like what Sifuna has said, I think we share certain shared values, because we also look at, we approach our democracy from a social angle. So we are a social democratic party ourselves. And we put the human as the first point of focus, because we realize that the biggest resource we have as a nation here is our human resource. And, you know, we've spoken to this a lot. Now, they're focusing on the handout, if you want to call it that way, or you know, now that ODM is talking about the cash transfer. I actually, you know, listening, and I know about the ODM manifesto because, you know, we were tied to the hip in the last election and the election before that. So we were party to, you know, putting together these manifestos and these ideas on how we can run the nation. And they were good ideas. Actually, the manifesto that NASA had in 2017 was a solid manifesto, and some of it has actually even been used by the Jubilee government. Some of these ideas that the Jubilee government is currently doing were actually, you know, sourced from some of the manifesto we had as NASA in the last election. And I think now the focus, I don't know why we have all now decided to focus on the cash transfer. I think that is just one of the aspects of the ODM, you know, manifesto. And, you know, knowing his Right Honorable Raila Odinga, he thinks very critically about the nation. That one is, you know, without a doubt. So I think the idea of bringing forth this cash handout as a big conversation was to counter I think the wheelbarrow movement idea that they will also give their cash handouts and, who is going to sustain it more and all that. But for us as WIPA, where we come from, in as much as we agree with, of course, being able to support vulnerable households, we still, maintain that Kenyans want to work. Kenyans don't really want handouts. It's important to have social programs where you can support the most vulnerable household, and especially post-COVID, because, we all know how vulnerable we have become. But looking in the long term, the idea is to create, an economy where Kenyans can work and, sustain their own livelihoods. That, in the end, is it. And there's no any presidential candidate who is going to come on the platform in Kenya today without the economy being the first item on the menu. It will be a lie. The economy is the conversation to have. Kenyans today are struggling because they don't have food on the table. Anyone bringing a different conversation, if it is not the economy, will be missing the point. But something also that is very critical that I have said here in this platform, Sam, is that there's no conversation about building an economy if we are not also being sincere about how we're going to fight the corruption. The lost money, the bleeding of the money that we do, the loans that we take, and we don't know where they go. We can't account for 100% of the loan on the projects that have gone on the ground. How are we going to seal these loopholes? And that has to be a sincere conversation. And sincerely speaking, it's not an easy one, because even our current constitution has put in quite a number of, measures to fight corruption, ESCC, the office of the, DPP, and what, all those offices are there. But you realize that there's still something. There's still that thing that Kenyans are still doing, and we are still bleeding money. And we have to really pin down on that issue. And if not that, then we have to do an about turn on how government does its business. Now, we are talking in WIPA, and we are saying we are looking towards a 24-hour economy. His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka has spoken about it many times, because we have a night economy that we are not tapping from. We have, we are not tapping from the fact that, Kenyans can do what we call shift kind of working. 8-hour shifts can be done 3 times in a day. And that can help expand the amount of tax we can collect, in which case then we can say we have a little more money. Once we have that more money, how are we tackling then that our money is not being bled and being, being stolen? We have to relook as a country how we are doing our large infrastructure projects, which have been known to be the conduits of exiting corruption money. That one we know. So then how can we relook at how government does these infrastructure projects? How do we relook at how we tender, such that, as Sifuna was saying, and we all know, because the former Auditor General used to talk about budgeted corruption, there's a whole, there's a whole write-up about budgeted corruption. And that is why you find the Controller of Budget and the Auditor General cannot pin down where is this money going to, because it's been budgeted from the beginning and is exited when the project is being done. We have to then relook as a nation, how do we do these large infrastructure projects? Because they cost Kenyans a lot of money, and we shall pay for this money for the rest of our lives.
How would you change that? Because the next president will inherit the budget that will be done by President Kenyatta's government sometime in June, and they'll be looking at the programs that have to be completed and that have to continue. So how do you remove that element of corruption from those
particular ones?
Yeah.
There might be not too much you can do from the current, what is currently going on. But that doesn't stop you from the second year of budget from relooking at how to restructure some of those things once you take office. It is doable, it is possible. There are countries that are doing these things differently, and we need to really tap into those best practices on how we can run our governments a bit differently and do projects differently. Bring the private sector, to the fore. Let the government fall back on the social issues of health, providing health care, quality health care around the country, quality education, empower our young people and give them the education such that they have the skills, and the ability to work. Leave the private sector to do manufacturing and give them the enabling environment, provide 24-hour security, and things like those. Give that enabling environment, let the private sector, do some of these projects that the government is doing. The government has no business doing, building factories and things like those are things you leave for the private sector. And you give them that enabling environment, an ease of doing business. That's what government is supposed to be doing. That way we can expand the tax collection bracket and relook at the law. In fact, part of for us who are proponents of BBI, we're also looking at where we're going to strengthen on Chapter 6 and fighting corruption, because that is a significant conversation to have as we go into the next election. So we are looking into this. Like I said, we are busy putting together our thoughts, and our manifesto is going to be unveiled any time now. But you know, these are some of the things we have spoken to. Our party leader has spoken to the 24-hour economy, and you know, and the zero-rated zones where business can happen. You know, investors can come from abroad. And then we can provide work and expand the manufacturing sector for our young people to get jobs. SG
Sifuna, I would want to follow up on what you just said, because out of the budget of 3.6 trillion shillings, we know almost 1 trillion shillings is going to pay public debt. 1.9 trillion shillings is financing running of the national government, judiciary, and parliament. 400 billion shillings is going to devolution. And our ordinary revenue, total revenue is about 1.8 trillion shillings. So if you had to talk about the ordinary revenue from, collected by KRA, they're about 1.7 trillion shillings. So if 1.7 trillion shillings, a whole trillion goes to paying public debt, you remain with 700 billion shillings to run the affairs of government, to run counties, to do other things. Don't you? How do you exactly do this to get this extra money? Yeah. Because for you to spend, you have to earn. Yeah, first I will encourage you not to be a prisoner of your own imagination. No, it's not imagination. These are the numbers that we have. I'm just inviting you to explain. What I'm telling you is, let your imagination flow. The money that you collect now is not the only money that you can collect. In fact, my sister has spoken to how you expand tax contributions in this country, how you encourage more investment, how you create more jobs to be able to expand what you collect. So what we collect today, when President Kibaki and Raila came into power in 2002, look at the figures that the Kanu government was collecting, and they put in place certain measures that grew the collections to almost 1 trillion shillings when it was less than 500 billion shillings a year. So it is possible when you put in place sound economic policies to encourage investment, to encourage growth of jobs, you are able to collect more. I wanted to make one clarification that in fact these social protection measures should be seen in the context of the other things that you are doing. Last year, or was it early this year, the United States, which is one of the most developed countries in the world, was sending checks to their citizens to the tune of almost 140,000 shillings. It is in recognition that, especially in light of the COVID pandemic, people are suffering. So as you sit and discuss how you're going to get industries to operate again, how you're going to lower the cost of production in this country to be able to attract investors, people are starving. Give them money. If you look at China, Sam, give the money from where? The exchequer releases. The money is there. I have demonstrated to you where the money is going to come from. Exchequer releases today are late going to the counties. I have demonstrated to you where this money is going to come from. Sam, we have a responsibility to take care of our most vulnerable people. Even as we discuss how we're going to turn around our economy, at the end of the day, there's 2 million vulnerable families that might not be there for that factory that you want to bring next year. We need them to be there. In China, they have been lifting almost 10 million people out of poverty every year. It is not something long-term. These 2 million vulnerable households will not be 2 million after the first 2 years of Raila Odinga's presidency. In that year, we might have cut the number by half. So we have to put in place programs to remove these people who are the most vulnerable, to improve their welfare, to improve their stock, so that they don't continue depending on government. So if you put in place all these things that we're talking about, rural infrastructure, creation of a state that encourages investment, both foreign and domestic, to grow the numbers of people who get employment, you are able to lift these people out of poverty. We are some of the most easily identifiable examples of what lifting one person from a family can do. We come from very poor backgrounds. But just the fact that Sifuna is now an educated lawyer and is here in Nairobi, is able to make a living, my entire village can feel the impact. So how many villages are those? How many villages are those that you can impact just by creating employment for those 2 million families that are currently exposed? It is nothing wrong to take care of your most vulnerable people. And that in fact, even as you discuss all these lofty ideas, at the end of the day, Sam, it is very easy for me to have this discussion with you because we both look like we had breakfast. You had breakfast. You see, it's very easy for you to host a show. But if somebody is starving, you want to come here and tell them about macroeconomic politics, my friend. SG Sifuna, that's very interesting. And you continue raising these questions because we can only aspire about the future if we understand the current? And the numbers that I'm quoting for you, these are the latest from the budget of Kenya, 2021, 2022.
Yeah, they won't always be like that. They won't always be like that. I've given you the example of how we moved from the KANU regime, what KANU was collecting.
No one is disputing that. They'll
so
not always be there, but you have to take us through how it will get different. Let's take a look at the feedback that's been coming through to us.
Can I just comment? Because what you're saying is important and is critical. And as we move towards the next election, the debate is how are these proposals going to actually work? And it will be very interesting, and I'm happy that you're already asking that question, but in the end we have to pin down our presidential candidates and see who is being sincere about the how, because we're already inheriting empty coffers. That's without a doubt. We're already inheriting a country that is debt-ridden, yet we want to propose that we are going to do so much for Kenyans. So a sincere conversation must be had as we continue towards the next election. So I commend you for asking those questions.
All right, and we'll keep asking them. Okelo Mwalimu is saying, 2022 general election will be the most unpredictable in Kenya's electoral history. As we move closer to it, anticipate several tectonic plate movements, especially in central, northeastern, western, and coast. The question is, that's almost the entire country. The question is, between Raila and Ruto, who will blink first? Jacob Abere, it's white and black in color that... I thought it should be black and white. Anyway, in color that Raila and William Ruto are presidential aspirants who have commenced to decimate about their manifesto's agenda. Others are Watu ya Mkono actors, and remaining months are for horse trading. Whoa, okay. Kisui Philip, some of the many proposals fronted by key political parties aren't very sound, but due to political desperation and a majority of uninformed Kenyan voters, politicians are resorting to desperate and populist proposals just to win that support. C.H. Kamau, the people are spewing venom to one of their own. This idea of the president is our tribe, so we need to have it all should cease. And the presidency entails all the other tribes' needs not only where one comes from. We are one country with different needs. And Odongo Rolex, IEBC, to miss their target is not a surprise. We have gone through difficult times in this second term of Jubilee, like COVID-19, high cost of living, loss of jobs. I think government should support IEBC for the process to be continuous. And Engineer Lazaro, I said it before on national TV, Citizen TV Kenya, voter registration mobilization should be left to politicians only. It should be an inclusive affair, from journalists, religious institutions, to digital media platforms, and maybe also the citizens. There was a tweet that here of someone, Apora Asiepora, you're ask Sifuna if it's important to lower the cost of education, health and food, or to lower the cost. Is it important to lower the cost of education, health and food, or to lower the cost of liquor or drinks? I remember that clip of yourself talking about to propose the bay at TE.
Yes.
What's your response to this?
Well, it is good that this conversation came up because it is in the broader context of addressing the cost of living in this country. In fact, at that rally, I spoke about the cost of flour, the cost of, which is basically the cost of food, the cost of fuel, and then the cost of alcohol. In fact, it is only with alcohol that you understand why this country is an extremely expensive country to live in. Up to 75% of the cost of a bottle of beer in this country is taxation. So why is it like that? Why is it like that, Sam? And we have had a problem of young people getting caught up in what we call the illicit brews. One of the reasons is because the legal brews are out of the reach of ordinary young people. Another lesson that I have learned from this conversation is that whereas people pontificate and claim that they are ready to listen to young people, they actually are not prepared for what we want to say. They would rather we didn't speak, because if we actually tell these people what we want, people get very uncomfortable. I got a very interesting message on Twitter from one of the so-called communication gurus telling me, you're upsetting the parents and the church. I was like, this is the reason why your children don't even talk to you. Because every time we open our mouths as young people, we are judged. Why is it that you don't think these are things that are important to us? Yeah, we want to live a life of dignity, my friend. We want to move away from drinking illicit beers in some hideouts in the back streets of this country to also having a drink with our friends on the table in respectable establishments after a hard day's work. So This conversation is good because it has brought to the fore the importance of having a discussion about the high cost of living in this country. Some in 2009, when Prime Minister Raila and Mwai Kibaki were in charge, a 2-kilogram packet of unga was 43 shillings. A liter of petrol was 48 shillings. So the young people send me there to Kamukunji to tell the Prime Minister, who's the incoming president, that they want to...
The price of petrol was 48 shillings in which year?
In 2009.
2009?
Yes.
Carry on.
It was 48 shillings. So they want to go back to a time when prices were sub 50 of fuel. And you know that fuel affects everything else. They want to go back to buying a packet of unga at 43 shillings, some. And a bottle of beer was 80 shillings, recommended retail price. So what is the problem with us having this discussion of cost of living? Because Kenyans are suffering some. We would like to go back to the good old days where we could afford a roof over our heads, we could afford food in our tummies, and we could also have a good time with our friends after the day is done. Yeah.
You've said quite a few things. I wish you had more time because I needed to check on the correctness of that data. I'm looking at data of 4 years ago. 60% of the price of beer was in form of tax.
Yes. That's 4 years ago.
Yes, I'm not able to find the data on...
you take your time, Sam. You know, I live this life. You have to Google it, but I live this life. I used to eat ugali in 2009. I know the price of a 2-kilogram packet of unga in 2009.
The price of fuel was 48 shillings per liter of petrol in 2009. I'll have to check on that because in 2012 it was 112. So I need to... check that. SG Sifuna from ODM, Senator Sylvia Kasanga.
I've not given my last
earlier on, we are practically out of time. But, okay,
you have to give a parting shot at least.
Okay, a minute.
So I just want to thank you, of course, for the platform and say, you know, as we go into the next election, what one of the people who has tweeted there has talked very well and said, you know, the issue of voter registration cannot be left to IEBC alone. And that is true. Everybody must be activated. The religious leaders must be activated. All the media houses must be activated in encouraging Kenyans to come out and register the remaining time and register. And in future, we must consider voter registration to be a continuous process, not just a thing that happens just at the eve of an election. It should be continuous, just the same way Sifuna was talking about the issuance of ID cards should be an automatic thing once you know, somebody has hit the age of 18 or even before. And you know, things like that. And just to speak a little on the conversation that we have had, we Kenyans must really be alive to the fact that we must put to task the people who want to come and lead us as a nation. We must ask them to really substantiate their promises, to really demonstrate how their promises are going to be actualized. We want to know what every leader will do within the first 100 days of office. And they're coming into a country that has no money. So we want to hear those questions. And I'm really asking that these media houses, you have these debates going, put them to task. Let Kenyans know they have to listen beyond the noise. They have to really listen beyond the noise because we have to get the good leaders and we must hold account our leadership. Thank you.
And you allowed me time because in 2010, the price of petrol was 94 shillings. The price of diesel was 87 shillings. That was in 2010. I don't know what the price was in 2009.
Why don't you take my word?
But it may not be 48 shillings. SG Sifuna, it may not be 48 shillings. So,
but it wasn't 120, was it?
Yes, it wasn't.
Correct.
But it wasn't 48 shillings. That's our time. Bye for now. My name is Sam Gituku. See you some other time. Up next is Mata Social. Stay tuned.